There is a closet in a house in Scottsdale, Arizona, that has not been opened in years. Behind that door sit 4 flags, pulled from 4 of golf's biggest stages, majors most caddies would frame, light, and hang like religious relics. But these 4 have never touched a wall. They have never been unrolled for a single guest. They sit in the dark, wrapped tight, because the man who sent them could not stop himself from doing one thing before he shipped them off. He signed his own name across every single one. This is the story of the most successful player-caddy pairing golf has ever seen, and the debt that quietly tore it apart. In June of 2017, 2 statements dropped online within minutes of each other. Both were warm. Both used the word mutual. Both thanked the other man for decades of loyalty. For years, that was the entire story the public was given. A clean, respectful parting. No drama, no scandal, just 2 men who had simply run their course. But that was never the whole truth. According to journalist Alan Shipnuck, who spent years embedded in Phil Mickelson's orbit while writing his biography, the real ending looked nothing like those press releases. The real ending was this: Jim Mackay, the caddy the entire sport knew simply as Bones, did not walk away. He fired Phil Mickelson. To understand how it got there, you have to go back to 1992. Mackay was 24, already carrying bags for major champions. Mickelson was 21, a hotshot amateur out of Arizona State who had somehow already won on the PGA Tour before he'd even turned pro. Mackay picked up the bag that year. Nobody thought it would last past a season. It lasted 25 years. By the time it ended, Mackay had been on the bag for over 40% of Mickelson's tour wins, and for every single major Mickelson ever captured, including that emotional 2005 PGA Championship. They shared 11 President's Cups, 11 Ryder Cups, and for a long stretch, it looked like more than business. When Mickelson's wife Amy was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2009, the Mackays were reportedly among the very first people through the door. The families vacationed together, traveled the world together. Mickelson would later call the Mackays family by name, the same way he'd talk about his own. That was the story fans got to see. Warmth, loyalty, 2 decades of closeness that seemed to have nothing to do with money. But underneath, something had been rotting for years. In 2007, the PGA Tour rolled out the FedEx Cup, a season-long race with enormous bonus money on the line. And according to Shipnuck's reporting, Mickelson promised Mackay a cut, standard practice in caddying, a percentage just like any other bonus. Except, according to the book, that money mostly never showed up. Now here's where it gets darker. In 2022, financial records tied to a federal gambling investigation surfaced, and they exposed just how much trouble Mickelson was actually in. Between 2010 and 2014 alone, his gambling losses reportedly topped $40 million, almost matching his entire income for those years. Once you stripped away taxes, travel, and a payroll that included an agent, a caddy, and private pilots, his real spending money was landing around $10 million a year. Nearly identical to what he was losing at the tables. He was never criminally charged, but he was ordered to hand back certain trading profits connected to that same investigation. By Mackay's own math, the unpaid FedEx Cup bonus alone had ballooned to $900,000. And then there are the flags. In professional golf, there's an unwritten rule. When you win, your caddy keeps the flag from the 18th hole. Not as payment, as a memento, proof, physical proof, of a career spent walking beside a champion. But Mickelson broke that rule from the very beginning, insisting on keeping every flag for himself, a habit that started at the 2004 Masters, just months after his grandfather passed away, when he had that flag framed for his grandmother's kitchen wall. Mackay understood that first one. He respected it. But 19 more victories followed. 4 more majors. And Mackay never got to keep a single flag from any of them. Ever. A source close to him, quoted in the biography, didn't hold back, calling it exactly what it looked like, a slap in the face to the man carrying the bag. Every other caddy who has ever won a Masters gets to keep that flag. Mackay never did. Not once in 25 years. At the annual dinners the Mackays hosted at their own home, guests would sometimes ask where all those flags were. Bones never had a good answer. By late 2016, Mackay was 51 years old, freshly recovered from having both knees replaced, the physical bill for 2.5 decades on tour. Around that time, Mickelson sent $400,000 toward the debt, less than half of what Mackay believed he was owed. Then came the quiet ending. Not a blow-up, not a scene, just a private conversation at the Memorial Tournament in June of 2017, 3 full weeks before the public ever heard a word. Mackay laid out everything he'd been carrying, and the two men agreed, for now, to keep it between themselves. Weeks later came those carefully worded statements. Grateful, mutual, not a single mention of $900,000. Not a word about a stack of signed flags sitting in a closet. A week after that private conversation, a second payment landed. Another $400,000. Combined, that brought the total to $800,000 of the $900,000 Mackay believed he was owed. There was no contract between them. Never had been. So the final $100,000 simply vanished, and Mackay had no legal path to chase it. And with that final payment came the flags. The PGA Championship. The Open Championship, 2 Masters, 4 major championships, overnighted to a house in Scottsdale. Every single one covered in an oversized Mickelson autograph. Mackay has never hung one. Reports say he plans to sell them eventually and give the money to charity. Not display them. Liquidate them. From there, the two men's paths split completely. Mackay entered the Caddie Hall of Fame, spent time behind a broadcast microphone, and in 2021 returned to the bag, this time for Justin Thomas. In 2022, at the PGA Championship, Thomas clawed back from 7 shots down, forced a playoff, and won it, handing Mackay his 6th major as a caddy. For the first time in 25 years, nobody had to ship him a flag. He rolled it up himself and kept it. He later said it meant a lot. Mickelson, meanwhile, won the 2021 PGA Championship at 50 years old, the oldest major champion in history, with his own brother now carrying his bag. A year later, controversial comments he'd made about the Saudi government went public just before he signed a reported $200 million deal with LIV Golf. Asked about Mackay since, he has said only that he paid Bones more than any caddy in the history of the sport. Mackay has never responded to that. He almost never talks about the split at all. So picture that closet one more time. 4 flags, 4 majors. A gesture that was supposed to close the wound, arriving instead covered in the very signature that opened it. And ask yourself the question this story keeps circling back to. Who was really owed something here? The man who signed the checks, or the man who carried the bag for 25 years and got an autograph instead of the tradition he'd owned?